Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we are back. Thank you for following us. Thank you for giving us all the feedback. I'm sitting here with one of my favorite English lecturers at university, Dr. Maureen Klos. Welcome, Dr. Klos.
Thank you for inviting me, Alon.
Thank you for coming. I truly appreciate it. You know, they don't know Dr. Klos. So Dr. Klos taught in one of the programs at Nelson Mandela University. It was then University of Port Elizabeth. We called it a UPEB program, UPE advancement program.
That's right.
And that advancement program took learners who were coming from school and who couldn't meet the minimum requirements to actually start a science degree, a BSc. And they were then taken through this one-year advancement bridging course. And I was one of the beneficiaries of that. Otherwise, I doubt if I would have made it to any postgraduate, anything, had I not gone through that preparation. She's one of the lecturers then who had started and joined Nelson Mandela University, UPE, in 1995. Is it 96 or 95?
I think I moved to Port Elizabeth in 1995, and that's when I started at the university.
Yes, and you were there, just as a form of introduction, she was there until 2017. That's a full 21 years.
Long time.
of listening to students and seeing students coming in and going.
Right.
But before we get there, Dr. Klos, I really want to find out just your background. Where were you born? How's your childhood look like? And things like that. Can you take us through that life of yours?
Well, I was born in what was a colonial country. It was Rhodesia, in Bulawayo, small town, not the capital, Harare. And I was blessed to be born in such a warm, bushy country. You know, I loved growing up there. And my schooling, I was very privileged to be able to do the system. They follow the English system of education, which they still do in Zimbabwe. All the exams and the syllabi are prepared in England. And I think even the papers are marked there. So it was a very high standard and still is. I mean, Zimbabwean students do the same type of have the same education that I had. And I was privileged. My parents weren't educated at all. They'd left school at sort of standard 8 level. They were originally from South Africa, and they'd moved to what was then the land of milk and honey for them. But they encouraged me to learn, you know, and there weren't really many books in the house either. But my mum joined me up with the library, so I read a lot. And I was very encouraged at school. I did well, and the teachers said that I read very well for my age.
And then more or less, how old were you at the time?
I started school 5, 6.
5, 6.
Yeah, that was standard then. And I was an only child, so, you know, a lot of time was spent reading, and I was also worked hard. I did my homework. I was hardworking. But as I say, especially my mother encouraged me so much. She made sure I went to piano lessons and all sorts of things, brownies. She was very concerned that she wanted to do her best for me, you know, even though she hadn't had that education. So I was very lucky that way.
And how long did you take piano for?
Oh, I did it for about 10 years. So but I never touch it anymore. I've got a piano at home and I never just look at it. You lose the technique, you know. You've got to keep it up.
If you don't play.
Do you play an instrument?
I do not, but my daughter is 5 years. She's starting to play.
There you go.
I think it's almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
She's learning. She's starting to read music.
Good. It's good for children to do that, you know, and it's part of creativity. So, you know, they might use that creativity in other directions.
So you see how I deflect that question, is that I don't, but my daughter is like something good can still come.
So you like my mother. You like my mother then.
Yes, I think my wife probably is like your mother because she's very much involved in teaching and making sure that my daughter is doing well.
Oh, yes. Okay.
She's also coming from an educator parentage. That,
really? Your
yes,
mom? Okay.
Both the father and the
Okay,
mother
so your
are in
parents...
education. Her parents, excuse me. Sorry, I need to just clear.
No problem.
Yeah, it's actually raining outside, so it's cold. That's why we are getting like this.
We all jumbled up, yeah.
Yes, and then after, what is the most memorable occasion, something that happened during that time for you, that even when you see today, it's like, this actually happened, and maybe that led you towards the language and education route you took?
Yes, not really. Most of my days were happy, and I loved reading, and my friends loved reading. I had a friend who came from a very big family, and just to get peace from her big family, she'd come to my house, but then she'd find books and sit in the corner and read.
And not play with you again.
Play with me.
And you would want to play as the only child.
Yeah.
Yes.
She was sick of playing because she had 6 brothers and sisters.
Because I've seen that, again, going back to my daughter, we only got the second child this year, like she's 2 months old. So now they are 5 years apart. And we could see the demand she had on us to play and all of that. And now the demand to go, can you take me to so-and-so to play? No.
When you're an only child, you rely on others. And it makes one very social. Makes one reach out to people. Because you have to. Otherwise, you don't have anyone,
Oh,
I think so. Your daughter probably is the same. She's very outgoing, I'm sure.
Yes, she is. She reads. She reads her letters from school. She reads books and she talks. She talks to people.
And she's only 5.
She's only 5.
Wow.
And it's the first time now I'm starting to understand a bit of her by just listening to.
Because she's been an only child for 5 years.
For 5 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. And then high school, do you remember anything in high school before getting to higher education?
I didn't like the high school. I went to primary school, and it was boys and girls, and we'd play, and then I went to an all-girls high school, and it was very Victorian and strict. We had to kneel down on the floor for them to measure how short our skirts were.
Yeah.
And you'd have to sit in assembly and not say a word. And I was very chattery in assembly, so I was forever told to stand up. But, it's fine. I went through high school, but I didn't enjoy school. But I enjoyed my subjects, and my favorite subject was French because it was something exotic, and I loved it. And the French teacher was from Belgium, so I saw someone from Europe, and I really loved the language. And I wanted to study that after university. At university. But then when I got to university, I ended up obviously doing English as well. And
so at university, you did Bachelor of Arts.
Yes, I did a BA. Majored in French and English. That's right.
Then you did
I did a bit of German as well there. German 1. I learned it, and a bit of Latin. So
where does this love for language come from?
I don't know.
Is it something clearer for you?
No, I don't know. My parents seem to have a little bit of that. Because they came from South Africa, they spoke Afrikaans as well. But that wasn't a good thing for me, because when I was naughty, they'd speak to each other in Afrikaans, which I didn't understand. And I had a little bit of a barrier against Afrikaans because of that. I associated with, negative feelings. So when I got to school back then, you chose between French and Afrikaans, and I chose French. And my parents couldn't understand that, but anyway, they let me do it. And my dad, we used to go to Mozambique for holidays back in the day, so I encountered Portuguese, and, it was fascinating. Somehow languages, maybe it's the left brain. They say the left brain is the language side of your brain. Maybe it was pretty stimulated. I remember when I left, when I finished high school, my father, who was a little bit of an old-fashioned man, wasn't sure. They were told by my teachers I must go to university. But he wasn't sure, so I went to an educational psychologist, and she did tests on me, and she said, definitely You know, I'm in such and such percentile. I must go to university and do the course. So, and then it came out that the language ability was higher than my space. I had no space relations, which I can attest today. People can't drive with me in the car. They hold like this when I'm driving in the car because I go off the road and everything. Although I've never had an accident.
So you drive slow?
Yeah, I drive fast sometimes, but for some reason people are very nervous when they're in the car with me.
Okay, and then because this is interesting for me, but let me ask, how many languages can you speak?
Okay, but basically English and French, and I make my way with Afrikaans and German. I was married to a German for 21 years, but he never spoke German at home, obviously. And I tried our children, because they have German nationality because of their father. I tried to sort of speak German to them when they were small at home so that they could get used to it, but they weren't particularly interested. My son is of the opinion that if you speak English, you don't need to speak any other language, which is not a good one. And unfortunately, I wasn't exposed to indigenous African languages either in my era. You know, nowadays it would be different, you know. And I mean, I grew up in Matabeleland, so the Ndebele was the language of most people, not Shona, as it would be everywhere else in Zimbabwe. But well, those were the days. Today it would be different. And I regret that I haven't mastered any African languages since I've lived here all my life.
Let me teach you one word.
Molo, I know.
Not Molo. I want to teach you something. Mkwazi.
Mkwazi, that's how to pronounce your name.
My surname is Mkwazi. And it just means a hat.
A hat. Mkwazi. Okay, that's
so
why.
So now you know.
Your book
is Black Hat.
Black Hat.
So you're making connections.
I wondered why blackhat.co.za. That's brilliant. Yes. That's you.
So exactly.
And I probably pronounced your name incorrectly when you were in my class.
No, I don't even remember that. But I'll tell you what I remember just now. But let me celebrate a little bit about your excellence, because you got your honors in education and masters in education.
And my doctorate, that's right.
But these two you got cum laude.
Yeah, that's right. Now what happened is I did, my BA, and then I went and taught for a year in Zimbabwe, was still Rhodesia. And my father said, well, you need to qualify as a teacher. And the school inspector also said. So I went back again after a year. I also went and travelled a little bit and then came back and did my senior teacher's diploma, which was abbreviated to STD in those days.
Yeah, I saw that in Cape Town. I was like, okay, I was worried.
STD.
I actually made a joke about that this morning.
My children used to joke about that.
What does it stand for?
My children used to joke about that. They said, Mom, you went to university and you got a BA, which means and then you got an STD, and then you had to take some med, and then you were dead. They used to say that when they were small, when they saw it.
Yeah, but what does it stand for? Because that STD...
Secondary teacher's diploma.
Oh, okay. I was like,
what a stupid name.
Because I know if I put it on Google, something else is going to come up.
Well,
it's not going to be what
it was 1976.
Oh, okay. So
now they call it all sorts of other things,
Okay, and then your PhD. Do you remember anything about the study and how was it? Just the experience of doing a PhD.
I did, and then years later, in my 30s, I wanted to keep my brain active. I'd been teaching and I had children, and I just wanted more. And I'd always been interested in law, but everybody discouraged me. They said, "Don't do law." Blah, 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 blah. So I decided, okay, let me just carry on what I'm doing and further my knowledge of education, which was very useful. I learned all sorts of things about educational psychology in particular, and it helped me bring up my children, all that knowledge. And then I was encouraged by UNISA. That's what I'm saying. UNISA, you left alone. I don't know what it's like now, but then it was good to study through UNISA. They left you alone, and helped you when necessary. And lecturers sometimes would come. I was living in Cape Town at the time, so they'd come there. And then I was encouraged to carry on with masters, which I did, and then the doctorate.
And then the study that you did for your doctorate, what was it on?
It was.
I know it was ages back, but
but it wasn't. It was basically. I was fascinated by stress. I think I was the first person to think of stress, and the masters was on stress in children and adults, in the school situation, and basically in the pedagogic situation. They used all funny words like that. And the masters, I took the same theme and applied it to females only in the educational situation. Females as mothers, as well as teachers and children. And I took a historical perspective, which was very interesting. And I went back into its history, and I found all sorts of sources to get ideas from. My bibliography is very, very varied in those theses. Anyway, it worked out well, and I enjoyed it.
And for part of the following of this platform are academics that are also busy with their masters, PhD. Others are already professors and postdoctoral, students, because they give the feedback. As also I'm part of the university now.
Yes.
And maybe what I'm interested in is this now relationship of a mother and a child.
No, it's how they are affected and what stress is and the manifestations of stress and coping mechanisms. And as I say, I took a historical perspective. And then at the time, this was 1990, when I started the thing, it was before democracy, but still there was transition, and our whole section was on transitional traditional females, the information that I could get from my perspective, And it's fine. I'll send it to you one day.
Oh, no. But having this conversation
it's
very
very reader friendly.
Is it? Is it? But for that parent that is listening now that has children and they're trying to be more helpful to their first grade and younger children, what do you think from the top of your head should really be an assistance?
I just have to speak from experience. Structure. I think children need structure, and you get different kinds of parenting. You get the authoritarian one, which I wouldn't apply, and the laissez-faire one. I mean, I'm being very simplistic.
Yeah.
And then the middle road, sort of authoritative, firm but friendly. I think for me that was the best parenting style. And my children, I mean, they had their problems, but they all turned out, both turned out well in the end. So, and through all sorts of crises, family crises as well. And today they're very balanced people, very successful, but they don't want children, which is quite amazing. But you find there are young people that they are in their 40s, so it's a bit late. But they've had happy lives, and they seek happiness all the time. They both have careers, but for them it's balance. And maybe I had some part of that, For them it's health and keeping active and having enough money to enjoy life, but they're not obsessed by money. So I hope that I brought them up to be balanced, work-life balance.
Okay, and I hear that because now you are already reflecting on how they turned out to be in relation to what you would have given them as a parent. But of course, every child is their own person.
Exactly. No, they never listened to me. They never. I never said to them, "You do this, you do that."
Yes. And also, we basically turn out to be the best that we can actually be.
Absolutely.
It's helpful to have been assisted or given certain resources to go through life, but at the end of the day, it's something that you really...
That was like a little leitmotif throughout when they grew up. Do your best and leave the rest. You can only do your best.
And you love, maybe let me ask before going to this question, who do you read? What do you read? What do you...
Well, I don't read many books these days because I spend my life in front of a computer screen with text because I'm an editor now and I'm 24/7, or not quite, but I sort of, well, every day, all day, I'm busy editing. And so when it comes to reading for relaxation, I don't want to see the written word anymore.
Yes, because that's
I'm
your
looking
work.
at the written word. But I find it very interesting when I edit because what the students have written is not only interesting, but I go down rabbit holes to gain more insight into what they're writing about. And I've learned such a lot. I mean, especially, when it's when they're legal documents, I know all about, well, not all about, but I know a lot about South African law, for instance, that I didn't know before. And a lot of my students are obviously writing about what's happened in South Africa, apartheid and beyond and the future. And my eyes have been really opened. And also, I've got one client who sends me a lot of articles. She's a doctor of anthropology in Natal, and what the insights I've gained from her into the culture, her culture, Zulu culture, and wedding customs and all sorts of things which I would not have known otherwise, because most people wouldn't talk about it, but it's there in their thesis or their article. Because I tell people these things, I say, well, how did you know that? And I say, from my clients,
Okay, and then now, I'm really interested in you as an editor, which you have. I've received. I'm giving you my book, my first draft of the book. What do you look for? What?
Okay, I take it step by step. I go through, first of all, from a language perspective.
Yes.
Not just spelling, grammar, punctuation, but the meaning. Is it clear? Is it coherent? Could it be expressed with more clarity? Is it elaborated enough? I'm thinking of academic editing. I've only edited one fiction book. So that doesn't apply, the clarity and the coherence and all that. It's creativity. And then I usually go through the referencing, or sometimes simultaneous. It depends. Obviously, with academic editing, the referencing is vital. And I'm very kind to my clients. I don't just say it's not there. I actually try and find it sometimes for them. Because everything's on the internet. And I can the publishers, everything you can find. And then the technical aspect, of course, all the formatting and diagrams and all that layout. And
you'll be happy I did the formatting and layout myself.
Oh, did you? Well done.
Yes, I tried.
Excellent. Yeah, no.
Because that's a whole process.
There are no rules for a book like this. It's not like you can be pretty creative here.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of spaces, which is because it's not really meant for heavy readers. It's really
No, but you found it pleasing for you.
Yes,
and that's why you did it. And it's as I say, it's not a thesis or a dissertation with specific rules.
Yeah.
And this is more creative, and you laid it out the way you would have. Looks very good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me today Dr. Maureen Klos. And you can hear as well how she's able to walk through text and is able to give guidance as to how people can improve either their writing, their submissions for academic purposes. And I think maybe we should actually also put your contact details if anyone would like to get some assistance.
For more information.
She probably will not.
I've got an editing services portfolio. I've got examples in it, and
I can actually share that with this podcast.
Yeah,
it'll be great.
Absolutely.
But also, I think you should have a masterclass as well.
That would be useful. Yes,
it will be very useful. I think I'll organize that so that we have you really doing the work and walking us through say, any form of writing that people are doing.
That's right.
And I can see that you already do mainly academic writing.
Yes, because that's what people are writing nowadays. I mean,
and that's what has a budget, I suppose.
Yes, a lot of my clients they have scholarships for editing, and yes,
because when you maybe this is now the next point. Sometimes we go through schooling from grade 1 to grade 12, and then we go through the higher education years, depending on where one is. But still, we feel that we cannot write. What makes that you go through all the schooling, all the homeworks, all the assignments that you write, and at the end of the day you have a degree or an honors or a master's, but people still would not write anything?
Maybe they lack confidence. Although, also, if for example, English, if it's not your first language.
Yes, as it is in my case.
And all my clients, very few are mother tongue speakers. But there are a few, and their English is not so great either when they put pen to paper. I think it's just, English is a tricky language. I mean, others are worse. I mean, French is more pitfalls to write. I think you have to check all the time. Although you just want to most of the people want to just get that down on paper, and then the editor must fix it up, which is also all right. That's what editors are there for. And that's why they insist on editors now at universities. Some universities even require a certificate that it's been edited. But I hear you, that you still feel it's difficult.
Inadequate. Still feel like you're afraid to share. It's not even about the idea now, it's how you communicate the idea with this written.
Although if you communicate it even imperfectly, it's still communicated. You know, if you're determined to get it out there. And of course you've got lots of help these days. I mean, Grammarly, for instance, it's free, you know. You just load the app and then you write what you want. And then it corrects it, it tells you what to correct. There are a lot of them, which weren't around back in the day, you know. And also words, you just quickly Google a word and there's also AI, there's artificial intelligence.
And what's your view on AI?
I think it's very helpful because, you know, sometimes I use it if I'm not sure what a student is actually talking about, you know, subject area, and then it'll explain that subject area for me. You know, I'm just thinking of something.
Because that's the first, I go to ChatGPT, just like for simple things, for ideas sometimes, just punch it there and see.
Absolutely, like with my painting. I've taken up painting, you know, I used to paint at school. I never studied art, but sometimes I say, look, I want to paint a lion. I saw a lion, and I want to paint it, and with in a sort of abstract way. What do you suggest? And I'll say, well, you'd first do this, and then you do that, and whatever. It might not be right, but it keeps you interested.
And I was going to get to the painting one because it's an interesting one. From language, and then you now. Or you saying that you're now interested in? Is it another language? How do you see the transition? Are you speaking there? Are you articulating?
Yeah,
are you
language.
Expressing?
You paint with words. I used to write a lot of poems, and I had some poems published back in the day. I don't anymore because you know, I'm so involved with language with everything else. But it's you painting with words when you put anything on paper with letters. It's a communication. And art is the same. Those colours. It's a communication of your emotions, especially abstract painting. You know, I do sometimes abstract painting. You take a thing for smearing cement, and you put the paint on, and you take it across, and you put another colour, and it means nothing. It's just a bunch of colours, but it's saying something, you know. And whoever sees it might interpret it in their way. So it's another language, really. Same with music, you know. And then different parts of your brain.
Do you have any favourite visual artists?
Oh, I like the modern Paul Klee. I like the Impressionists, but beyond that, Matisse and all those, the sort of post-Impressionists. and Van Gogh.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time looking at art. I go to exhibitions and
the other time we bumped into each other.
That's right. It was ceramics, but that was also so interesting.
Yes, Bed Street campus is doing great. I love what they're doing.
I battled to find it. See, that's all I know. It's the first time I'd been there. And it's sort of hidden behind the building.
Yes, it's excellent.
Oh my gosh.
They always have interesting.
But those ceramic pieces, as that lady said when she gave a speech, she said they're not not for use. They're not teapots. There were a few teapots, but they actually sculptures. She said with clay, which I really liked. What she said.
Yes, and she said something about clay, something like a slogan. I was like, this is great.
It's because clay is so easy to mold as opposed to stone. In the ancient Roman times, all the sculptures were stone. They had to chisel away there.
The reason why this is interesting for me now to build from language words that formerly you used to read, and then later on in life you are writing. I want to talk about the importance of that person that also gives and expresses from inside out. What have you learned from your whole life about just that need, or maybe the importance of expressing?
I think it's important to express, to say, communicate. That's why I don't know if I did in your classes, but throughout my teaching at the university, I put heavy emphasis on oral presentation, just so that students will feel confident saying their knowledge, bringing out their knowledge in any way, even if it was in a dramatic way. I don't know if you remember your oral presentations, what you did. I suppose you had to be on science.
I remember quite a lot of what we did.
Everyday subjects? I can't remember.
First and foremost, that advancement program took learners that couldn't make it to BSc. And I think before the recording, I was even saying that where it helped me was to first know what I should have known by then. Because you just go through university, you don't even, high school, you don't even care about whether, you just see a pass. Oh, I've passed. I didn't really struggle in high school. It was just my later years in high school, because also there were family issues that were coming up and my marks dropped. But then now I'm presented with an opportunity to know what is it before you get to this stage in life. This is what you should have known in math. This is what you should have known in basic science and physics and English and all of the presentations were one of those. Understanding, we did MATA, which was not a diluted math. It was not the actual math at university. But then it summarized everything together for us. Having that perspective, knowing that I was being taught logic, actually, it was not math. It's much more intimidating to know that you're going to a math class than it is to know that you are actually going to be taught logic. If we move this X here and put it to the other side, we probably need to divide it by so and so. If we rearrange this equation in this particular way, the other side is going to be like that. Now, even if you don't use X, we use like a bigger compound, but it still stands for X, only that it's more complicated.
Absolutely.
And then you add it with another bigger compound, and then you're going to get a particular... So I learned that through that experience, that, this is not really about understanding what is 2 times 2, as opposed to the logic of having 2 units that are twice their own selves, and what does it mean that it's 4? You
understood the principles, in other words.
So the principles are very...
As a school, you just followed the little procedure.
Exactly. And now you have people that were very, like professors and doctors who are teaching you these basic principles. Philosophy then makes sense because math makes sense. And math makes sense because now the language, the literacy side of it really makes sense. And I say that... because later on, I'm interested now in philosophy, and I'm listening because I'm watching it through YouTube, and I'm listening to Michael Sandel at Harvard teaching about the philosophy and the tyranny of merits, and I listen to him bringing these philosophers, which are sometimes European and maybe Greek, mathematicians and all of that. I now understand in my own context that this is, even though this is just an idiom, actually this is a philosophical statement that I could actually pursue its tenets, build it up, why it makes sense, it's logical, step by step.
Yeah,
and I would not have known that not unless I've gone through this kind of education that I've done.
That's right. They don't there's no time for that at school.
Yes.
They just want to get you through the syllabus.
Exactly.
So I know I used to drive my maths teacher mad at school because I would ask why all the time. She'd say, okay, there, but why? I don't get it. She said, just follow the pattern and practice the pattern. That's right.
Yes. And then you were the first person that ever said to me, you are a philosopher.
Well, I can think back now. I think probably you were discussing something, who knows, maybe it was a comprehension, and you were reasoning, and that's probably why I said to you, you should be a philosopher. And that the other students were just like waiting for lunch.
And that was the first time I even heard of that term, philosophy, really? Actually. That's so, because English is not my mother tongue, and
so it was
always a second language. Yes,
that's another thing. How can people be confident with English expressing? I think just try and improve the vocabulary. Every time you see a word, don't just gloss over it. Sort of look it up. What does it mean? Especially English. English, one word has so many different meanings and roots, more than any other language, because English comes from Anglo-Saxon, what they spoke, the wild men in England back in the day. And then other nations came into England. The French, the Romans came into there. So Latin is infused and French is infused with English. So it's got these Germanic roots and these Latin-orientated languages as well. So that's why English is also so difficult, and why each word or many words have different, spelled the same, and like through, it can be dough, O-U-G-H, or tough. It's all O-U-G-H. So it's a very, very, from a vocabulary point of view, it's a very difficult language. But on the other hand, it makes it rich. So you can always find a word to express it. So when you see a word in English, look it up, just Google it, and then it enriches your vocabulary. Maybe that's when students feel more confident to write. Don't worry about the grammar, that will sort of sort itself out. Just to get those words out there, and as I say, there's so many. But the philosopher, so did you go home and then look up the word philosopher after that?
Yes, I did.
What did it say? A thinker?
It didn't make sense then.
What did it say? A thinker? You're a thinker.
I don't remember actually, but I know that I did look up the term. But now that
you probably thought I was insulting you.
No, I didn't look. It didn't feel like it was a bad thing. Yeah, because you just rely on the feeling at the time. But
you should
when
be
to
a
look,
philosopher.
because I know I looked it up because I still link my understanding of philosophy to that
experience.
day. And I have not even studied it formally, but it is something that has sort of been lingering. And now when you read my book, my interest in how I write, how I just read the world, how I read my society, how I actually make sense of the basic other occurrences in my life, or the people that I meet, and make a moment significant through my writing. Yeah. It's, now that I think about it, I'm philosophizing. I'm literally
thinking of why and wherefore and how and what led up to it.
Yes, and that for me is something that I think I can actually take into the future by just understanding my context and actually engaging with that. And that's what I'm trying to do.
It's important that people do think. I mean, it's great that you do. It shows you are a true academic.
No, thank you so much. Now I need to pass, Kiko. That's why I need my PhD as well.
Oh, you do? You do. So, you must go as far as you can.
Yes, definitely I'm going to go.
For your own. That's why Also, people said to me, why back then did I do M.Ed and a D.Ed? You're just going to be an overqualified teacher. I said, I'm doing it for my own sake, for my own satisfaction, to know that I've done the best that I can. We spoke about that earlier, doing the best you can.
That you can.
I've got somebody, he's more a colleague of my daughter. He's an attorney, and he's practiced for years as a labor lawyer. But now suddenly in his 50s, he wants to do his doctorate in law. I don't know what it's called, LLD. And everybody's saying, why? He's a big surfer, and he's the head of the South African Surfing Association, or the African Surfing Association. And the thesis is on, contracts between surfers and whoever employs them. And I think it's great that he's doing that. It's not for anything but personal gain,
Okay, if you were to write a book now, what would the book be about?
Gosh, I've often thought of writing a book, but I don't know, I never get the time. I suppose it would be trying to understand my mother, for instance. She was a bit of an enigmatic character. I've thought of that. And also, as an African, white African, who doesn't really have a culture. I don't have a culture. I'm not English. I'm not Afrikaans. I'm not French. I'm not South African. I'm not Rhodesian, because the country doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not really Zimbabwean. I'm kind of in the middle. So I'd have to somehow express that. Maybe a cultureless woman, a woman without a culture. And how I've made myself is my culture. That's the only thing I have, And I actually envy people that have deep cultural roots. It must be very comforting.
Knowing that there are certain norms that are understood across, there are certain rituals, or at a particular time we know we gather in a particular...
ancestors have been doing that for generations.
Yes, it's really comforting.
It must be.
Yes, it's also that you don't have to start everything. Most things have been thought out for you. That's why.
And you share it with many people.
Yes, and when you disagree with that, you also disagree, and because you have the privilege of having it being there at the first place. Otherwise, you would not be disagreeing with anything that was
And you can reclaim it now. Not like in the colonial past, you were made to deny it, and you weren't allowed to express it.
And that's
which is wonderful now.
Yes, that's what we are doing now as my generation, is to literally go back and find out as much as we can.
And preserve it.
And and preserve it. But then I want to explore this question. Maybe we're coming to an end of because it's a sense of hanging. You said being culturist, as you put it.
No one's like me. I'm kind of the mold. After I'm dead, the mold is broken. So to speak. My children aren't even. We're not culturally similar. I mean, they're born and bred in South Africa. They half German, and so it's a very strange feeling that I've got.
And then if you were to write about it,
I don't know how I would write about it, but I suppose it would be kind of memories. I suppose it would be kind of an analysis of feelings. I'd have to look at somebody like Virginia Woolf, a writer like that, who just goes into the consciousness and writes about that. But I don't know if I'll ever get around to that. That's why if I've written anything, I have written some short stories, but mostly poetry, because that's so kind of in the moment, and you can mesh lots of ideas there in language. But I don't do that anymore so much. I don't have time.
Okay, so you spend your time now
editing.
Doing editorial work.
But, I edit, and then I walk my dogs, then I come back and I edit some more, and then I walk the dogs again, because they're border collies and they love walking.
Oh, okay.
It gets me out, Yeah. And I don't have anyone to look after or cook for. So I've got a kind of solitary existence, but I'm fine, Yeah,
no, I think I should actually visit a lot more often so that we can have more of these conversations. I think it's an important thing that you put that feeling down, especially concerning culture, especially also concerning this solitude, this thinking. You probably are doing a lot of thinking. And I don't think when you put that word down, it will have no impact. Because as soon as you put it down, someone will engage
said to me,
with it.
to write a book, all you need to do is a few pages a day. And after so many days, you've got a book. So one should do that, And
but the most difficult thing is the honesty that you will have to engage that writing.
And not worry. I always worry about structure. How's it going to be structured?
You're editing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And what should be a good way to start? What should a good way to finish? And how should it end? But a good writer actually just goes in and does it.
The creative element is different. The creative part in it is different than the editorial part. And I read a couple of YouTube videos also to help me mental block and all of that. It just says that you basically don't want to be an editor.
No.
For your first draft.
Exactly. You just go there.
Yes. After text has been written, you basically become so ferocious in editing yourself. Things that you need to cut out, you can cut out, but at least you would have put
it down, and the creative juices would have gone, not been suppressed.
Yes,
absolutely.
But you find it difficult because.
But even before I took on editing seriously, I only did it once I retired from the university in 2017. And then I did it basically to earn some money. But then I got so into it, and, I kind of, basically I've made a manual of editing. It's a mess, but I mean, it's just, every time I find out something new, I make a document, a Word document. And if it was cleaned up, it could be a manual for editing. But anyway, so I got so into it that now I enjoy it for itself.
I'm interested in that manual. Pennies. I'm really interested in that manual. We should work something out when it comes to that. And then now.
Yeah, you could do it, and anyone with. As you say, BA in language and doesn't want to teach, then they can try editing. Well, I mean, English editing. But I suppose you could have editing in other languages too.
Because that's entrepreneurial now. That's the last thing I want to talk about is how one who has been either maybe doing PA or only has an undergrad degree, whatever it is, because they would have done a lot of assignments and writing anyway, and they would have been taken through a lot of training in understanding and editing their work. That is an entrepreneurial journey that you are now experiencing post-retirement.
Absolutely, and I had to because, I didn't really get much of a pension, and you know what, these days it's just very difficult, but I'm fine now, It worked out very well. I'm very blessed. Yeah,
I don't want to go too personal, but I would like to explore that a little further, because even how now a lot of people are employed. I've heard a lot of people complaining about how their employment is very precarious.
Oh yes.
There's a lot of temporal. Employment.
Absolutely, and without benefits. And
yes. It's like no one wants to take the responsibility,
it's bad.
But the institutions would want to actually receive, your best and all of that.
Absolutely.
So people are starting to commit outside in other things outside. The younger generation will not commit to this form either of employment and of being. Well, and therefore they are committing outside than they would.
I mean, even my children found that,
And that's how I also started my company.
Exactly.
I eventually left. I'm like, this is unstable. This is precarious.
Yeah, when you're your own master, it's much better. You're in control.
Okay. What Dr. Klos is going to conclude for us now? I know I've taken the conversation everywhere because it's a really a very selfish conversation I wanted to have with her.
I'm
happy that she came, but I would like for her to sort of give her concluding remarks concerning education, language, this conversation, and anything that comes to mind before we close.
I think any education is beneficial, and fortunately there's a drive in Africa for education, and it was so in Zimbabwe, and everyone is not, a lot of people are well educated in Zimbabwe, but as you said, often education doesn't bring work. But it brings you skills which you might be able to transfer. It teaches you problem-solving skills, reasoning. You mentioned logic. All that comes with education, which you wouldn't have without that, you know. So even if you do, I don't know, degree in fine arts and you can't sell your paintings, it's still you've learned certain skills that you can apply elsewhere. It's just to have the courage to try it out, you know. And even lawyers, I mean, they move elsewhere in the world and they can't practice their law because they've studied it in South Africa. But they use it in other ways, drawing up contracts or, you know, doing that sort of work, you know. But paperwork or, you know, negotiations or whatever, without actually needing to qualify in the law of that country. The only thing is doctors, of course, there's a problem there. Doctors, if they move to other countries, they aren't allowed to practice. I don't know what a doctor would do.
A medical doctor now.
No, I think that's probably the most difficult of skills to transfer, because each country has their own regulations when it comes to.
So they probably write an assessment.
They'd have to start again, basically, you know, and re-qualify.
I think they write some kind of an assessment that helps them.
But some of them make them kind of redo everything again if they're specialists, for instance.
Yeah, that's hectic.
Well, the best is to stay in your home country then, that's I think.
Yeah.
And rather give to your home country.
Yeah, no, we need to earn in foreign currencies. Looking at how the currency in South Africa is just becoming...
But we're all right here. Everything's relative, you know.
Yeah, but I feel I need to earn in foreign currency.
Yeah.
I need a bit of dollar or a bit of euro and all of that. Because also we buy softwares and we use dollars.
Yes. Oh.
Even Grammarly, when you buy, it changes.
Absolutely.
Atlas TI.
But Grammarly is free. It's only Grammarly Premium.
Premium.
You pay.
That premium is far much. It's helpful for somebody who, like me, because the basic Grammarly would give you certain suggestion and then still tell you that if you were to get premium, you would get further
even
services
more
like
help.
this.
Yes.
So now that exchange value when you buy and update
pricey.
And all of that, it's starting to hurt. I feel that. Thanks once again, Dr.
Thank you for
Klos,
inviting me. That was really great.
Yes,
I'm glad I bumped into you there that day, back in the day.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I was with Mandela.
He was also in the class.
That's
right.
Of that program. There's so many other people, but I'm sure if you see this and you know Dr. Klos, please drop a comment and make sure that we get to see. One of the worries is that the program was discontinued because it was not clear then how successful it was, because people did not move directly from the program to the planned course of BSc. People started moving around. I see some of them, even I think suspect, I don't want to mention name, yesterday, but she's doing a PhD now.
Oh, wow. So there you go. So many...
People did get what they needed there, but it was not that linear trajectory.
It wasn't linear, absolutely.
That was envisaged. But then that's what happens with human development, right? You don't know where people are going to end.
Exactly. And I mean, as you say, you're so young when you come into a program that you're practically a child, you know, and you have no idea really where you want to go. You know, and I mean, as a female, gosh, when I was at school, and you left school, you either just became a housewife and a mum, or you became a teacher or a nurse. You know, there was really little else. You know, and I mean, today there's so many female doctors and lawyers, and so the smorgasbord is wide. You know, the choices. So you don't know what you want to do. Even now, everybody I talk to that's got somebody in their last year at school, they say, she doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do. I said, well, it's normal.
You must just spend more time finding yourself as well.
But it's good to do something, you know, to not kind of stop learning. These people go off and so-called gap years, they might never get into anything again.
Yeah, no.
Once you stop studying.
We only got gap years because we didn't have money for registration.
Yeah, gap years. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading Dr. Klos's book because it's important. I think it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting because I don't think you are the only person that is going through this.
A cultureless person, absolutely.
Maybe you might even find out that it's not that you are cultureless. It probably that certain connections have not yet been made. You have not been able to make. In the current world where people from different groups, heritage, racial groups, religious groups are coming together and actually forming new forms of family.
Their own culture, that's right.
Yes, and what is culture in that sense? And knowing that culture is never static, it's dynamic.
Absolutely,
what culture would have been created by your own existence? That heritage will be seen also through is seen through your children and how they interact with the world. How do we?
It's a different definition of culture. It's not just customs. It's not just rituals. That's right.
Yeah. So I think also engaging that thought.
It's something maybe I need to philosophize a bit.
Exactly. I think so. I think we're getting there. Thank you so much, Dr. Klos, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Yes.
Did you say your final word?
I think that was it. I can't remember what it was now, but I did say a final word. I said about education that it's never a waste.
Yes. Okay, and then you need to find ways also to use the education that you got to accommodate that kind of a reality that you're experiencing. And there's always.
But it's also taught you to think. Yeah.
Yes, education doesn't teach you actually to have a job. It should not actually.
No.
It will be
it's
very
a formation. It's a formation.
Yes, it should help you to think and solve problems. You can see I don't want to close this conversation, but thank you so much. We'll see you next time. I have a feeling Dr. Klos is coming for something more specific with us because I have seen her in action, and I think I still need that to create that environment where we probably bring our drafts of scripts and you take us through.
The best was the oral presentations. I loved that because the students used to use all their skills,
Yes, and that's what I think I would still like to share.
I'm sure you did a very good oral presentation. I'm sure I can remember.
I'm getting brownie points already.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and really God bless.